why they killed John Kennedy, too, because the Pope, they were afraid. Freemasonry in this country was very much afraid that John Kennedy was going, the old Joe Kennedy was going to start a Catholic dynasty in America. And that's one thing they're not going to have in America, the Catholic dynasty. You can't help it once in a while a Catholic will get elected or something, but we ain't having no dynasty here. I mean, every time you turn around, Joe Kennedy had, what, 15 kids? My God, he was going to have kids galore. He wanted to have all his sons be president, congressmen, senators, always going to be a Kennedy doing something every time you turn around. So somebody decided to take Kennedy out. It's interesting that Kennedy, all the stuff around Kennedy's assassination is just filled with secret societies, fraternal orders. All you need to do is see JFK and you know there's something going on here. Anyway, here you got the Knights of Malta on Nazi soldiers. With Adolf Hitler. That's because Adolf Hitler was connected with the Vatican. The Vatican signed concordance with Adolf Hitler. And that's why Mussolini and Adolf Hitler and the Pope, they were the enemies of Jewish Freemasonry in America. That's why if they're going to kill a few Jews in Europe, who the hell cares? I mean, that's business, you know. That's why Hitler was killing Jews, is because the Vatican was an opposing branch of Freemasonry, which was a Gentile Roman branch of Freemasonry, which is why Rome, Mussolini of Italy, joined together with Adolf Hitler because they were trying to reestablish what is called an Aryan system of laws and science in the world as opposed to the New World Order in America. But when you see all these things happening on a world scale, they're not just happening. There's reasons for all of this stuff. You know, here's Nazi officials. They look like some of the people who run this country. They're just like it, too. And they look about, yeah, don't they? Don't they look like governors and senators and whatever? And so here's an emblem right here. This is the Knights of Malta. They all wear the Knights of Malta symbol, Masonic Order of Malta, Roman Freemasonry. But then down here, this is the Military Order of Malta. Incidentally, when you see the round circle with the swastika was the old Aryan Hindu symbol for the sun, like the Egyptians had Horus. Well, the ancient Aryans of India had the swastika for the sun. Incidentally, the swastika for the sun for the Aryans and the Buddhists, the broken legs went the opposite way. Hitler inverted them and went the opposite way. The Aryans had it going clockwise, which meant something spiritually in the esoteric. Hitler broke the legs and made it go backwards, which meant it's going back to the east instead of going to the west. So he was reestablishing the old Aryan empire on the ancient Eastern occultism. All of this has to do with secret societies and subversive movements. But anyway, this Knights of Malta religious emblem here on this one is interesting because when you enlarge it, I think I need to, that's pretty good. You'll see that it is the same one as the other one we showed on the before, Knights of Malta, but you'll see it's two circles. There's an outside circle and an inside circle, all right? Here it is again, outside circle and inside circle, okay? Knights of Malta. Religious Knights of Malta cross. And there it is again. But where is this at? It's in Pasadena. First Congregational Church in Pasadena. Right? It's on churches right here in Pasadena. The Knights of Malta, Religious Knights of Malta symbol. So, and something else you might be interested to know. On all churches, you'll find pointed arches on the doors. You go into a church with a pointed arch, and the windows are pointed arches. The pointed arches symbolize the female. The pointed arch of the female, and that's why the male. That's why they would never allow women to be priests in a church, because the philosophy which gave birth to what we call Roman Catholic or Western Christian civilization was based on the female arch And the man wears, the priest wears the robe, or the robe, which is the female dress. A robe is a female dress. And a priest wears a robe because spirituality in the ancient world, according to the ancient world, spirituality was always in the hands of females, not the males. Men were never thought to be holders of religion or spiritual creatures. They were the ones that went out and killed and raped and murdered and brought in the food. The women were the ones that nurtured the child, brought civilization to males, because if you take all males, you lose civilization. You need the female to civilize society. Yes? Oh, yeah. Compass of the male. It has to do with that. And that's why I said that the priest represents, with the long robe, he's representing female wisdom, or something the Greeks call it Pistis Sophia, female wisdom. And within the female wisdom, beneath is the male. So it all has to do with symbology. It all has to do with sex, the female, pointed arch, etc. All right, then we get up here to York Rite Freemasonry again, and here is the Masonic square, or the Masonic, the Malta, Knights of Malta cross. The cross, that's the same one the Queen was wearing. Right? The Knights of Malta cross. Here it is again. Let me go back to that. Order of Knights Templars. That's why in Israel today, you see the Jews going to the Wailing Wall, and you see this in the news. They're at the Wailing Wall. And it's the wall in which they wail. They wail because of the Wailing Wall was put there. It's a very difficult story to say in a couple of words, but that's where we get Wall Street, from the Wailing Wall, the Hebrews who wail on the Wailing Wall of Wall Street. It has to do with symbolism, which goes back to Solomon's Temple. Solomon's Temple was the symbol and the home of what is called the Knights Templars, Knights of the Temple. That's why Steven Spielberg has the Jedi Knights, and the Empire Strikes Back and the Jedi Knight. Incidentally, according to, if you go to the library and look up the Masonic folklore, you will see that the spiritual connection between the Freemasons of the York Rite and God was a little spiritual creature they called Yoda, with little pointed ears, and he was a magician. They called him Yoda. Yoda comes from Yoda, or Judah. It has to do with Judah, Yoda, the Knights of Malta, and whatever. You could make a whole study out of any of this. You could make a 3-hour lecture out of every single thing I'm saying. You could spend hours on it, but I'm just throwing all of this stuff in just to show you that there are connections that can be made. Anyway, the Knights of Malta with their Maltese cross. Here's another Knights of Malta 33rd degree Freemason with the Knights of Malta. Okay. Here's the same one on Masters of the Universe. Right. That's what they intend to be, is Masters of the Universe. I mean, hell, they own the Earth. Now they're going for the universe, right? Now they want to go out to other stars, moon, own the whole universe. Masters of the universe. Blonde hair, Aryan. Remember Hitler with the blonde hair, Aryan, Knights of Malta, Catholic Church, kill the Jews. Hey, it's all connected. Right? Okay? You get the Knights of Malta again. I'm drawing your attention to this strange configuration here because you'll see it again in the fire department. LA Fire Department has the Knights of Malta. Because the fire department, the police department, sheriff's department, mayor's department, and everybody else's department is all Masonic, the whole thing. We are in the hands of a very powerful secret society, and we call it law. Actually, it's nothing more than secret societies who have totally taken us over. And we just go along to get along because we're too ignorant and too frightened to death to do anything we did know. Yes? Yeah, on a red background. The Knights of Malta are a Gentile Roman Freemasonic order coming out of the old Roman Empire which was the collective power of the old world of Europe, because Europe was dominated by Rome. And so the Knights of Malta is a symbol for a Masonic order coming out of the old world order of Europe, and it was called the Knights of Malta, and because it goes back to an old priesthood on the island of Malta. Malta was a symbol many, many, many years ago, over 2,000 years ago in the Roman Empire. Let me think of something that's comparable. You know, there are certain places in our country that are hot spots for occultism. And in the Roman Empire, Malta, the island of Malta, was a place where you go there, and those people are really off the wall out there. They got strange stuff going on there, occults and all that kind of stuff. So Malta was always a symbol for occultism in the ancient world. And so the Romans had what they call the Knights of Malta, the knights who operate. Yes? No, the Illuminati, right. The Illuminati is a relatively new phenomena in Freemasonry. It came in 1776 with Adam Weishaupt. But what the Illuminati was merely a course correction in Freemasonry. There was the Roman world under the Roman domination of Europe, Freemasonic orders. There was the coming out of Spain, France, the coming of what is called York Rite or Scottish Rite Freemasonry, England, Spain, France, coming into America to found a new world order, but above them, above the two orders, which is the eagle with the double head, implying that both sides, both the old world order and the new world order, are being dominated by a third one. And that's what Ian Fleming in his James Bond novels was talking about, that there's a third power over the two, and it's controlling both. And that's the Illuminati. No, this is just showing the Knights of Malta symbol, which is Roman Freemasonry, but it shows how they don't mind using both sides, as long as you remember that America is a York Scottish Rite country. They don't, you know, they're symbols of Freemasonry, and what I have to do is I have to show you their works, their reference works that explain these symbols and how they connect, because they're very open with it. They explain their symbols and how they got here and what they mean and why they allow them to be used. Yes. No, they're all working together for the same goal. The same goal is to create chaos, to have Adolf Hitler fight the United States, have Russia fight America, have China fight. All of this stuff is being orchestrated from a higher Masonic order. Well, that's the thing that there's been a lot of conjecture on. There's been a lot of books written about that. Ian Fleming wrote his James Bond novels. He called it Spectre. Remember, somebody, the secret, petting the cat, and he's putting the West against the East all the time. And Ian Fleming, when he was interviewed on David Frost's show, they asked him, who is this Spectre, this third power group that's always getting the East and the West at war? And he said, England and America and the Western world are aware that there is a third power in the world that pits the two together. And that is operating, he said, out of Switzerland. That's what I think is why Switzerland is a neutral country, because that's where the big boys live. And you don't mess with, yes, the World Bank. As a matter of fact, in Switzerland, there's a large building in one of the cities of Switzerland, and I had a big color picture of it. I don't have it on slides now. There's a large building in a big downtown city in Switzerland, and it's a round, perfectly round building, enormous in size, look like maybe 2 or 3 blocks, round circle, and it's divided into equal three, into an equal triangle. And 1/3 is it says in the article, 1/3 of the building, and then when you fly over it, you can see it. It's like the peace symbol. That's why the peace symbol was the Y within the circle, okay? It was called in runic, in the old German runic, it was called the peace symbol. Anyway, the 1/3 of that building in Switzerland is the world headquarters for the United Nations. 1/3 of the other third is the World Bank, the International Monetary Fund, and the other third is the World Headquarters for Freemasons, the Masonic World Congress. So you got the Masonic World Congress, World Government, United Nations. Here's another Masonic apron, and on the apron you will see King of England, the Pope. Incidentally, that's why when you go to college, you get out of high school, you wear, when you graduate from high school and college, you wear a black robe, same black robe that a priest wears. It's the same black robe that a judge wears. And the square you wear on your head when graduating is called a martyr board. It's a square of Freemasonry. So if you go to church and you do things right and you stay in line, you're square. Yeah. And here is what we call the Royal Arch Freemasonry, which we saw before, Royal Arch. And that stone right in the middle that holds the two sides of a Royal Arch together is called a keystone. That's why Pennsylvania is called a keystone state, because Pennsylvania is where the Constitution was signed, where these guys put this whole thing together. That was the keystone state, where the keystone was finally dropped between the 6 and the 6, and the one in the middle makes 13, the 13 colonies, the keystone state. Again, it says, for the Royal Arch Chapter, note the headdress of the principals. We're talking about the Royal Arch Chapter, right? And note the headdress, again, the Pope, the King of England. Now, we have something here, these symbols up here, this is what is called, and I can't remember if it's a 60 or the 90, but I'll do it again. This is I think the 60-degree square of Freemasonry with the G for geometry in the middle. The 60-degree, and incidentally, the reason why it's like this is because of the triangle pointing down and the triangle pointing up. You know, if you cross them, then it becomes a Star of David. That's why it's there that way. Yeah, that's it. And that's according to the Masonic books. They say it's actually a takeoff on the Masonic Star of David. Triangle up and triangle down, but this is the 60-degree square. All right. On them, anytime you see like the Olympic stars or any of these other, they always have the ribbon, right? Anytime you get an award from the government, it's on a ribbon. That's called a 90-degree square. That's a square, but it's at the 90th degree, a 90-degree square, okay? You have to keep that in mind because that's a Masonic square, okay? Here it is, the 60-degree and the 90-degree. Okay, I'll back it up. I was wrong. That's the 90-degree, and this is the 60-degree. 90-degree square, 60-degree square. Well, it has to do with, here's the square of the 90-degree, and here's the square progress of the 60-degree, okay? The 60 and the 90 degrees. And what are we talking about here? We're talking about Freemasonry, okay? Here it is again. The same as square Freemasonry. Here you see it, the 90 degree and the 60 degree in churches. Yeah. So when you see these choirs, singers in churches, they're wearing the square of Freemasonry on them. And it's only appropriate because they're worshiping the Masonic God. Here is St. Louis at Jerusalem. According to, I don't know if this you can't see this too well, but it says St. Louis at Jerusalem. According to Masonic history, the man who first captured Jerusalem for the Knights Templars was St. Louis. So they honor St. Louis with the Royal Arch in St. Louis, the Royal Arch. Yeah, in St. Louis, the Royal Arch degree of Freemasonry. I mean, these guys are good. They do all this stuff and crap in front of you, and you have no idea what. Yeah. No idea in the world. It's all connected. There's nothing happening by chance. And there's no problem with economics in this country. There's no problem with lawlessness in this country. There's no problem with anything. This is the strongest, most powerful nation on the face of the earth. So if there's any problems, it's because they are causing the problem to keep you agitated and frightened and scared and in control. Ordo ad Chao. Here's something called the Summit of the Arch. This is from a State Department bulletin. And here it's, I don't know if you can see that, the reading. It's the meeting of all of the top criminal families in the world. You know, the Germans, the American, Margaret Thatcher. These are all the heads of state in the Western world. And it's the giant glass pyramid. Of course, they would have the picture taken in front of the pyramid in France, and that's why always in any great wars and all the time of world trouble, you always have to have a Paris Peace Conference, in Vietnam and Korea. You always go to Paris because Paris is the home of the French Grand Orient Temple Masons, right? And so here you got the summit of the arch. Why would they call this the summit of the arch? For the Western world's financial and the leaders of the Western world. Here's a little Masonic library to show you how it's connected with religion. We got Masonry, Mormonism, and Freemasonry from the Masonic Lodge Publishing. So Mormons are founded by, organized by, directed by, and financed by the Freemasons. Joseph Smith and Brigham Young, the two leaders of the Mormon Church, were both 32nd degree Freemasons in the Scottish Rite. There's another book, The Relationship of Mormonism and Freemasonry. Here's Mormonism and Masonry. Freemasonry in the Book of Mormon. That's why in Utah we have Zion National Park. Zion National Park with the great white throne. Incidentally, it's not black throne, it's a white throne. And that's why America is ruled from the White House, not a brown house, a yellow house, it's the White House. Okay, and that's because England is ruled from what is called Whitehall. Whitehall is the central power of England, Whitehall. I'm telling you, the people who are running this country are the most powerful criminals the world's ever known. Oh, wait a minute. Should we take a break? Okay, let me back it up then. Huh? Oh, okay. That way we'll make it work out all right on the tape, okay? So, all right, let's get past this one thing and then we'll take a break. Masonic Orders of Fraternity. This is taken from a Masonic document. The direct descent of the essential program of the esoteric schools was entrusted to groups already well conditioned for the work. The guilds, trade unions, similar protective and benevolent societies have been internally strengthened by the introduction of a new learning. The advancement of the plan required an enlargement of the boundaries of the philosophical overstate. A world fraternity was needed, sustained by a deep and broad program of education according to the method. There's a method to this education that we're getting. Such a fraternity could not immediately include all men, but could unite the activities of certain kinds of men, regardless of their racial or religious beliefs or the nations in which they dwelt. Here's the point. These were the men of towardness, those sons of tomorrow whose symbol was the blazing sun rising over the mountains of the east. Remember Shell oil, okay? What it's talking about is that the conspiracy already had knowledge that the guilds, the trade unions, similar protective and benevolent societies were perfect grounds for control. So you set up the Red Cross, you set up the Painters Union, you set up these unions and benevolent societies and this and that, set them all up to ostensibly, of course, protect the people, to help the people, and protection, when in fact they're being organized and directed to control the people. And it does, and such a fraternity could not immediately, we can't explain this conspiracy to everybody, we can't count in everybody on this, but we could unite certain kinds of men. As long as we all understand what's going on here, we could unite these different organizations together. And the symbol for these men, these were the men of towardness, whose sons of tomorrow, these sons of tomorrow, whose symbol was a blazing sun rising over the mountains of the east. That's important. These were the men of towardness, the sons of tomorrow, whose symbol was the blazing sun rising over the mountains of the east. While it is difficult to trace the elements of a pattern never intended to be obvious, the broad shape of a design is dimly apparent, the invisible empire. So it's saying it's very difficult to put all of this together. But the reason why it's difficult is it was never intended to be obvious anyway. If you're on the inside, you know there's a design, but on the outside, it's not supposed to be obvious. Okay? Here's where they're getting this from. This is from the old Assyrian Babylonian mythology. The sunrise, the god Shemesh appears above the mountains of the east. Here's God's sun rising over the mountains of the east. That goes all the way back to Babylon. Here it is in Hebrew theology, the sun rising, Israelites at Mount Sinai. The sun rising over the east. Shell, the sun. The sun rising on Hebrew, Jewish Freemasonry. Here it is, the Kabbalah. We're talking about the Kabbalah, and here on the back on chapter 9 is called the way of one who is caught between the suns of a dying and a dawning day. The one caught between the one who, no, wait a minute, the way of the one who is caught between the suns, implying that there's two suns. There's a sun going down and a new sun coming up. The old sun of the old world order, Rome, is going down. Vatican, Europe, is the old sun, and it's going down, and there's a new sun coming up on America. There's a dawn of a new day for America. It's going to be the king of the world now. 1,000 points of light. All right, so what we're talking about here is between the suns of a dying and dawning day. George Washington said, here's his chair where he signed all of his documents, George Washington. And up here he says, but now at length I have the happiness to know it is a rising and not a setting sun. I now at length have the happiness to know that it is a rising and not a setting sun. So Washington understood. This is a priceless relic of the Constitutional Convention, the rising sun chair of George Washington. Yeah, with the Fijian cap, yeah. As a matter of fact, yeah, let me go back on that. The Fijian cap, that's the old cap of the Fijians. And the reason why, I mean, I could get into this too, I'm not going to right now, but there's a reason why. We'll get into that another time. That's very interesting too, the Fijian cap. Here's a book by James Billington, Fire in the Minds of Men. It traces the course of the revolutionary faith from its earliest origins in occult Freemasonry to the allegedly scientific Marxism of today. So when you hear things about scientific Marxism, communism, the Soviet Union, and all of that, what we're talking about, scientific Marxism, is actually had its earliest origins in occult Freemasonry. And James Billington has written some brilliant books. He is a Rhodes Scholar, like the new president. He's a Rhodes Scholar also. He teaches at Oxford. He's probably taught our new president. He is a really establishment boy. This guy is well thought of by all the gangsters and top of the governments of the world. He's their boy. And he is a very, very brilliant man. He's put out some very thick books on the Illuminati and Masonic. This whole book is dealing with the Masonic symbols and emblems that are used throughout the world and what they mean, and well, tremendous. But but I was showing you this only because in relation to Marxism, connecting it with the origins in Freemasonry, okay? Again, here's a page from an encyclopedia on Russia, and over here you have the flag and this national coat of arms. The national coat of arms talks about the rising sun is a symbol of the dawning of the new day of communism. New day is in quotes, okay? The rising sun is a symbol of the dawning of the new day of communism, all right? This symbol came out for the Soviet Union 1930s, late 30s, mid to late 30s. It originally came out at that time. In New York, we have the dawn of a new day, dawning of a new day of communism, and in New York we have for the World's Fair in 1939 the dawn of a new day. There's connections between the New York World's Fair and the coming of the Soviet Union. Somebody's trying to tell us something in New York. Sun rising for in Russia, Soviet Union, sunrise. Here's the, what is it, half a dollar? Yeah, 50 cents. And here it says, she is moving toward the dawn of a new day, the sun rising for us. They put communism over there. It's rising for us now. Now we're coming into a communist system. We call it democratic, like the People's Democratic Republic of China, the People's Democratic Republic of Cuba, the People's Democratic Republic of Romania, and now we got the People's Democratic Republic of America. And nothing in all Marxist communism is the same as the old Roman fascism. It's all totalitarian dictatorships, period. Here's Charles Taze Russell, founder of Jehovah's Witnesses. He's telling everybody the new day is dawning, preparing all the poor Jehovah's Witnesses for the dawn of a new day. Here is the Watchtower Bible Tract Society of Pennsylvania, Jehovah's Witnesses with the sun rising over the mountains of the east. There's a Christian distributor for Christian materials called the New Day, sun rising over the mountains of the east. Christians have no idea in the world. All this stuff is being manipulated, presented to them, and they have no idea in the world. And they're out there preparing the world to accept God's kingdom, Channel 40, and never realize the symbols of Channel 40 are Masonic. And all of their leaders are all Freemasons. It's too bad, but it goes back to, pride precedes the fall. When it is you think you have the whole truth and you're in tight with the Lord, that's when you've been had. Richard Nixon struck a coin for himself and called it the New Day for America, the New Dawn for Peace. That's what he did. Here's Liberia, the flag with the symbol for the rising sun on the flag, just to show you how it's used throughout the world. The sun which heralds a new day. Romania, their symbol is the sun, like the shell, the sun rising over the mountains of the east. The rising sun expresses the promise of a new day. Here's Mongolia, the horseman on horseback with the sun rising over the mountains stands for the nation's advance toward communism. Malawi with the red sun. Malawi added the sun to symbolize the dawning of a new day for Africa, and it was. They killed a lot of people over there. And Afghanistan, there was a new dawn for Afghanistan. They broke that up and killed a lot of people. And here's on rings, high school rings, college rings, a new dawning, sun coming up. Here's the sun coming up on college rings and high school rings. There it is. Behold a new dawn, the sun coming up on the mountains of the east. I mean, hey, they control education, religion, politics, the police department, fire department, and Sears. I mean, let's face it, they own and control the world you live in. It's the only game in town. Behold a new dawn. Kids wear these rings and have no idea in the world what that means. And how much more time do we have on the film? Good. A recurrent mythic model for revolutionaries, early romantics, and young Karl Marx and the Russians of Lenin's time was Prometheus, who stole fire from the gods for the use of mankind. I'll read it again. A recurrent mythic model for revolutionaries. A model for revolutionaries. And early romantics, young Karl Marx, and the Russians of Lenin's time was Prometheus, who stole fire from the gods for the use of mankind. Prometheus. Here in New York, at Rockefeller Center, we have the Prometheus Fountain, the Masonic Square, Freemasonry, and in front of Rockefeller Center is Prometheus on the Promethean Fountain, who stole fire from God. And that's why during the Olympics you have they're running around with the torch. That's the torch of Prometheus, like the Statue of Liberty holds the torch of Prometheus. It's a symbol for the Age of Enlightenment, or the Illuminati, the illuminated ones, holders of the light. Well, wait a minute. Yeah, I'm just going to, this is the end of it right here. The United Nations, I was saying today to one of you today that the post office, our postal service used to have on our post boxes on the street were red, white, and blue. Today they're just simply blue. They're just simply blue. Because blue is a symbol for Israel. It's the symbol, it's the national color of Israel, which is incidentally the same national color for, the international color for the United Nations. This color blue. This particular shade of blue has since become known as UN blue. This is UN blue. It comes from the old Grand Lodge of Freemasonry, the Grand Lodge blue. That's why it's called blue degree Freemasonry. The first 3 degrees of Freemasonry is called the blue degrees. That's why the United Nations is blue. Yeah, that's why when you go to college, you get a degree. Because that's the way you move in Freemasonry is by degrees. The 33rd degree, the 32nd degree, the 3rd degree. You go to college and get a degree because these people will teach you what you're supposed to know, not what you're not supposed to know. You're not supposed to think like this. They teach you what you're supposed to know. They teach you how to earn a living, not how to live. They teach you how to think, not to think, but how to think. And so that's why when you come out of college, they call you an alumni because you're an alumni. You are illuminated. You've been enlightened by the powers that be. As long as you stay square and play on the square, you're going to do all right. As long as you don't go thinking too much.